Just for the record, I don't usually do video when we do these. This is actually the first one that we've done video. I don't know that we'll produce it as video, but it's always good to have. We'll see. Maybe we'll use it, maybe not. But the audio is the most important part. All right, so I'll do a quick intro. Welcome to Early. My guest today is Richard Olsen. Richard is a visionary finance juggernaut and believer in change to create a better future. He founded Lykke in 2013 and launched the exchange in 2015 with a mission to leverage the power of blockchain technology as a way to reform the financial services sector. As a blockchain and financial services product provider, Lykke, under the leadership of Richard, has consistently positioned itself to strategically reach out to new consumer demographics in the B2B and B2C market with the aim of reinventing the financial services industry and showing people what is truly possible with the power of blockchain. Welcome, Richard. Great to have you here today.
Great, Dollar. Great fun to be together. Thanks.
Yeah. Now, I know your background is in high-frequency trading. That's, I think, that's sort of your expertise in finance. Can you tell me what that means?
So
I'm not a very experienced finance guy, so you may have to dumb this whole conversation down for me.
So way back, kind of when I started my career, I first worked in a bank, and seeing how banking was being done, I thought, how can we improve decision making in banking to kind of make sure assets are allocated in a more rational way? For me, it was obvious, let's build a real-time information system using big data. So together with my team, we built a real-time forecasting service for largely foreign exchange markets. And the idea was to build a kind of weather forecast using tick-by-tick data. And, that we were the first company that really collects every price quote. And in collecting every price quote, we collected millions of price data within a day. And this source of data gives us a big competitive edge. And this is how we established the reputation as a pioneer of high-frequency finance. Because in 1995, we launched the first high-frequency finance conference, which was attended by the finance specialists kind of from universities from around the globe, and gave rise to a new kind of discipline within finance, market microstructure.
And no one else was doing that at the time?
Yes, it was crazy. I mean, kind of today, it's hard to imagine. Kind of, we had hard disks collecting the data, and a famous professor out of England, Charles Goodhart, he and his wife were collecting tick-by-tick prices by watching the screen. And so we kind of streamlined that. And in 1995, we made available to the academic community 110 million price quotes. And obviously, this was such a game changer from daily data to suddenly these masses of data.
Right. So that was, and was your focus at the time, was it academics, or were you utilizing it in trading?
We were doing two things. On the one hand, publishing scientific papers for academia, but at the same time, selling the real-time information service to the top treasuries and kind of hedge funds. And this is how we made money.
Okay, so you didn't have an exchange at the time, and you were not part of a company that was trading or actually utilizing the data.
So we started that business, and then in 2001, we launched under the brand of Oanda. We launched a trading platform that offers kind of the man in the street the same narrow spreads as the hedge fund manager has, and which was an instant success and helped to transform the FX market. And it's there that I learned such a lot about how a market really works from the inside.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's kind of around the time that the internet started booming. E-Trade was first on the market then. Was there any connection to increased access for retail traders?
Oh, that was the primary focus. Yeah. So, kind of, it's really kind of the guy in a hamburger joint to give him the same kind of terms as the top hedge fund manager, and also simplify the product in the sense of, just you get what you see, you don't pay ticket fees, just make it super efficient.
I live in New York City, and of course, financial capital of the world. But everybody at that time, everybody was, I think it was the internet boom. So everyone was trading stocks, and you could do it, online. And retail traders were getting in on it, way in over their heads, not unknowingly. And I remember a news piece on it was a yellow cab driver who, in between fares, he would run into internet cafes and make day trades.
Yes, but it's it's a huge learning experience of how to make sure that people don't lose money and what it takes necessary to create a solid foundation. But it's there that at Oanda, we disrupted the way how, from our operational point of view, offering second-by-second interest rate payment. And that was a call to action to revise the way the banking system works in the background, because the banking system today is still batch-based and uses, the mainframes.
Right. And Oanda has been a platform for trading currencies, right?
Yes.
Futures exchange. How did you go from that to trading crypto?
So, so Oanda was hugely successful, highly profitable, and but my core mission was, my true interest is to revise and change the back end of the, how the financial market really works. And in beginning 2012, I tried to convince Oanda, look, let's reinvent our business model and take a leadership position in blockchain, because we were so cash rich. But I didn't have a chance to convince the board. So I left and then said, look, I'll start from scratch. And Lykke is a super ambitious project of bringing all the knowledge and experience which I've gathered together and make it work within the blockchain space.
Yeah. So that happened. Well, that happened around 2013, right? You started building Lykke.
Yes.
And what was the, besides the trading on the blockchain, what was the business model at the time? Like, how are you going to make money?
So basically, first I have to explain the core vision is, for me, not cryptos. That's just a side product. It's really about bringing all financial assets to blockchain, and to really re-engineer the back end. So we had a twofold business model. On the one hand, launch a crypto exchange to get our hands dirty, but at the same time, do business to business solutions for banks which want to migrate over to this new world.
So yeah, explain that a little bit. What do you mean by bringing financial assets onto the blockchain?
To be able to trade bonds as digitized bonds, shares as digitized, tokens, commodities as digitized tokens. Because for me, the future is similar to the internet, is an intermarket, that everything has a digital equivalent and for which there has to be a market, including liquidity for that market.
Right. So what sort of how prevalent is that now, besides, and Lykke is doing that, right?
So for me, to be honest, we have not gone very far since, because 2008 was for me a key event, obviously. And I hope that regulators, central bankers would be ready to embrace right, the new technology to push forward. And we see it with the bank failures, that things haven't changed such a lot.
Yeah, that was my next question. Basically, like, what are the roadblocks, and what kind of regulations are preventing this from happening on a larger scale?
I think, first of all, if regulators were truly open, even with the existing regulations, you could make it work. But because regulators are just overwhelmed and just fearful, they, kind of put any microscopic roadblocks in the road, in the
Sure.
way, and, kind of miss out on the opportunity. And, you have a completely confused marketplace.
Yeah, and I'm a firm believer that regulation is okay. It's actually necessary, meaning there have to be some rules, right? There have to be guardrails, and people need to know, but people need to know what they are. I think the big challenge at the moment is that we're kind of in a very gray space, and there's government agencies and groups that are unelected officials and not exact, who are trying to enforce rules that are not exactly laws. So I think it's for someone like yourself, trying to build in that space must be very challenging without really knowing what's ahead and what rules you need to play under.
Exactly. And kind of we have to be radical. I mean, kind of we have to change the way how we create rules.
Yeah.
Kind of. So, and most of all, most serious is that there is lack of transparency of what is wrong with the existing financial system.
Sure. Yeah. So, but that all said, Lykke does exist. Lykke is an exchange. And what is the business model for Lykke?
So, first of all, our core business model is kind of to make markets, to be a market maker. That's key. And secondly, is that we're kind of offering institutions, be it banks or kind of small startup companies, software to implement their goals. And by doing these projects, we increase and broaden our technology stack to create a seamless environment.
And so you hold the assets, correct? Like you're creating the market for an asset.
I mean, that can be, depending in the DeFi setting, we don't hold the assets. So, but it's
Okay.
What people underestimate is you have the core blockchain technology, but on top, so much additional technology is necessary to make it a seamless experience, and that requires a lot of building.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I was saying before, that you might have to dumb this down a little bit for me. I do not realize all of that. So, any light you can shed on that technology or that actual interaction is helpful to me and anyone else listening, because I kind of from what I see, it's I guess it's like what differentiates Lykke from other centralized exchanges?
I mean, first of all, we don't users don't pay trading fees for kind of market orders.
Right.
I mean, one thing, I mean, the kind of mission here is to democratize, but
Yes.
democratize also means let's get rid of all this complexity.
Yeah, and that can be done in a fiscally responsible way.
Of course. I mean, again, kind of what I'm missing out on is if you take a smartphone, think of how much technology has gone into design and kind of how it's set up.
Sure.
And now think of how much technological design we have to do when we create financial products and markets for it.
Yeah.
So it takes this type of engineering passion and attention to detail.
Sure. Yeah, I think some people think we can just flip a switch and launch new products on a weekly basis. I know it takes time, it takes work. So you said democratization of financial markets a few times. What's your vision for that? Like, what can you dig into that a little bit more?
I mean, first of all, internet as it exists today was unthinkable 30 years ago.
Sure.
And obviously has democratized access to information. If you think of Wikipedia around the globe, has been transformational. Now, when you go into banking, there's a big problem which people are not fully aware. There are the top 3,000 corporates, and financial institutions, which have a top service from banks. You have people, giving them prices with narrow spreads, low cost, price efficiency, but everyone below is charged an arm and a leg. And, that has to change.
Yeah.
So,
and you believe that the technology exists to make that possible?
in theory, it exists. To
Right.
make it seamless and, kind of really working, a lot of work is required. But then there's other problems as well. I mean, we see it now. As it happens, is the big guys is being bailed out. The small
Right.
guy will never be bailed out.
Right.
So, but now the problem, how can we solve those issues? Something which people are not fully aware of is the dysfunctionality of the market itself. So, like when you
What do you mean the dysfunctionality of the market itself?
like when you have a bicycle, a flat tire, kind of makes even the best of bicycle cannot be even the best of cyclists cannot use it.
Yeah.
So if a financial market has the equivalent of a broken tire, then the financial market, whatever you do, is broken at some stage and cannot be used. And this is true in several regards. Like one thing is interest rate payments in financial markets only happen overnight. There is no concept of paying interest for 2 hours or 1 hour or 3 hours. But that is super serious. Is just imagine you could, would pay electricity just based on the fact if you have the light on at 10 o'clock in the evening.
Based on usage, yeah, based on flow.
And so just the fact that this is not there makes markets very unstable.
Yes. Do you see blockchain technology making facilitating that?
Of course. And I mean, this is the true value of it. I mean,
Sure.
You have the kind of trivial benefits which people today associate with blockchains, transparency, etc. But also it allows us to move away from systems which are just big mainframes to continuous settlement. And within continuous settlement, that, for example, you pay interest by the second, and you're rewarded to hold a risky asset for 2 hours or 3 hours.
Sure. Is that something that you're working on?
Of course, yes. So for me,
how's it going?
Addressing these shortcomings, that's the core, kind of objective.
Yeah. I found a quote that you said a few years ago. In today's economy, internet connectivity is a necessity. Initially at the outset of the internet revolution, and you just alluded to this, by the way, many CEOs were slow in grasping the full significance of the internet. The same phenomenon can be observed today. Many managers are doing lip service to the importance of digitization of assets and the need for custody of digital assets. Explain what you meant by that. And it's very, very powerful statement.
I mean, the same, kind of as with the rise of the internet. If people were aware of the power of digitization and what it can bring to the bottom line, both for the company and their own customer, think of how much we could unlock of today, which is just dissipates in terms of inefficiency, or which then results in, kind of bigger footprint from a kind of environmental context of society. That's one. But secondly is obviously when we go digital, we have to solve the custody piece and, make sure that, that's handled in a responsible way.
Yes. Yeah. And I fully agree with you. I see a world in our future where essentially every real life asset will be digitized, ownership in particular. But anytime I talk to normies about this, people who don't understand the technology at all, or just kind of like inquisitive, they say, I don't want to live in a world that's all on a screen, that's all computerized. I like the real world. So how do you justify that in your explanation of the
I mean, of
digitization?
course, they're right. The real thing is the real thing. But on
Yes.
the other hand, it's like when you go to the doctor. I mean, we're damn happy that the doctor has all these gadgets. So let's solve the back end so that we can focus on the real thing. But, the importance is to solve the back end. And this we haven't done.
Yeah, and agreed. And I think that is, thus far, it's been one of the shortcomings in this space, is that not just solving the back end, but also the user interfaces and the way that people see what's happening. They shouldn't see the back end.
Of course, and I mean, kind of, it has to be, for me. It has to have the slickness of
Right.
a modern kind of interface, and this requires real work and also reinventing the concepts which we have in finance, and kind of, you mentioned before, dumb them down, but make them more common sense.
Sure. Yeah, it is. It's pretty daunting for people who haven't ventured into Web3 or don't have a crypto wallet. They really, I mean, most folks have no interest in going down that road, and I think it's our responsibility as builders to make it a much easier transition, make it a much easier interaction.
Of course, and get rid of the slam.
Right. Yeah. So what do you see as the future? What does blockchain finance look like to you in the future?
First of all, kind of in the spirit of what you're saying is,
Yeah.
in the future, it will be hidden to us. It will be
Yeah.
taken for granted, but completely hidden. And kind of, and the exciting thing is, as opposed to talking about financial markets are over there, financial markets are hidden everywhere, but they're kind of we have access to their benefits.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any experience with NFTs? Have you dabbled in the utility of NFTs at all?
A little bit, but we kind of, not focused on it, because,
Yeah.
kind of, at least in my view, is just to get excellence in one area.
Sure.
Is challenging.
Yeah. I think, I mean, the reason why I ask is because I anticipate that NFTs will, they'll be probably an unlock for access and provide security in the world that you're speaking about. Basically,
I
like
agree.
yeah.
I agree. I mean, and what's also very interesting is something which people haven't explored on, is that it actually will, from a legal point of view, open up a lot of opportunities,
Sure.
and also play a pioneering role in kind of generating the right kind of, kind of mechanics. So from that point of view, super interesting.
Yeah. And I expect that all industries that are doing any work in Web3 will have some sort of NFT component to their I guess back end and front end, particularly, I guess, to the user experience in particular. Users will probably interact with most platforms through an NFT and not
Yes,
recognize what's happening behind it.
I completely agree, and kind of embrace that kind of approach.
Yeah,
Fully.
it's hard for a lot of people to see that in this world of monkey JPEGs and whatever else at the moment. That's what an NFT is, but that's not what an NFT is. So it's really what's behind it, and I think
Yes, and what I find particularly interesting is, from a legal point of view, it opens a door which, kind of, again, you, from a common sense point of view, would think it should be locked, but no, in actual fact, it's open. So if you use that as the entry door, it's like a magic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, big unlock. So much is happening in the world of AI lately.
Yes.
I'm curious how you see it influencing your world, your current technology, your platform.
So for us, that has a big play. But I want to emphasize another area of AI which has been completely underexplored, is AI for digital data. So in my career, I've spent a lot of time on that. And we have actually launched a service, which is a kind of weather forecast for cryptos called Optimal, which uses AI to analyze market prices. And it's kind of, I can go off on a long time in explaining all the details of the AI there. So I wait for your questions.
No, that's okay. Keep talking. I want to hear more.
Kind of on the one hand, I mean, we see what today AI can do, but what has been super disappointing is applying AI for digital data. Kind of, and why haven't our, forecasting tools, time series analysis, not worked? And so I've spent many years on this, where the answer is to go to a new concept of time, move away from physical time, calendar time, to a dynamic event-based time. And if you do that, you suddenly see patterns in markets which otherwise you'd never see before.
That's wild. I need to. I have questions about that. What do you mean? Or give me an example, please.
So first of all, I don't, kind of when you collect data and analyze that with an algorithm, the question is, you have all your price quotes. Which price quotes go into your model? For example, when you do a moving average, do you take hourly data, daily data? Do you take every minute of data? And now, when you take this approach, you discover that, always when it's important, the peaks or troughs, you miss out. And how can you get around that? So, yes. So we have come up with a new concept of time, which is purely event-based.
Yeah.
Which kind of looks at directional changes. When the price moves by a certain threshold in a new direction, then that's the intrinsic time event.
Mm-hmm.
And then it moves back up by the same amount. And using that opens a whole new world of analysis.
Huh. I'm trying to wrap my head around that. I mean, you're really. Are there other applications for that? You're sort of bending the time of financial analysis.
Yes.
Do you see other applications for it?
Of course, you can do it for any type of problem.
Sure.
And actually, in computer science, event-based approaches are much more common than kind of the layman things. So that's point one.
Yeah.
The second, some of your listeners might have heard Mandelbrot and fractals and chaos theory.
Sure.
So it's all very much related to that.
Yeah. Fascinating. Is that something that's been implemented in your application or your platform already?
Yes. So today
And
there is
and that's accessible to retail traders.
Yes.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a kind of a call to action to make this then a much bigger, kind of project. I dream of kind of Wikipedia-like for digital data with real-time forecasts, not just one data series, but
Sure.
kind of for any type of data series.
Yeah, and that being user-generated or automated.
First, kind of like Wikipedia, you have experts who kind of build the models and make them available.
Sure. So at the moment, what I mean, all this innovative technology and success of the platform, but what are the biggest challenges impacting your work at the moment?
I would just say noise. Kind of a lot of
That's
the other
everybody's
guy.
problem, right?
Yes. So and kind of we're just normal human beings. You have all the small everyday challenges. Get
Sure.
that right. So it's just nitty-gritty work and persistence, and getting the word out there.
I thought to ask you this question. Now I'm afraid to ask, but I'll ask anyway. In What would be what would you see as a timeline, or um, when do you expect to see larger or mass adoption of blockchain technology? And, as we said before, it might not be exactly people interacting directly with Web3 or the blockchain, but I guess blockchain technology being implemented on a larger scale basis that influences everyday people's lives.
Kind of, even though the past 7 years or whatever it is, or 12 years, or have you
Yeah.
again, have been much
Yeah.
slower, but because it's an exponential curve, which we're seeing
Yeah.
adoption. I
Sure.
mean, at the end of the day, it's much faster than we think.
Right. So bit by bit, very slowly, and then all of a sudden.
Yes, and also, I mean, something which people are not fully aware. I mean, the world is, being really shaken up. So there's a lot of external pressure for change, and that will catalyze things as well.
By shaking
And
up, are you referring to financial markets in particular?
yes, financial markets, political, and then I think one thing which something people are not aware of, like with a bicycle chain, when you have a bicycle chain that's not fully assembled and one link is missing, bicycle chain doesn't help you a thing. But as
Right.
soon as the last link is there, boom, that gives a huge competitive edge. So as soon as people have completed a full bicycle chain, then the whole industry will really take off.
Yeah, you're sort of hinting to the idea that we're pretty close.
Exactly. But let's keep our eyes to the ground and work
Like,
hard
keep
and
working
not
at it. Keep
promise too
working
much.
at it. Of course. Are you a bicycle rider?
Yes, yes, yes. I
You
find it
commute.
fun to get around here.
You commute by bicycle?
Yes, it's so. And again, you have in riding a bicycle, you have event time. Time doesn't flow smoothly up the hill, down the hill. Very different experiences of time.
Location to location. So it sounds as if you think of a lot of time in that way now.
Yes,
You sort of
everything.
adjusted your relationship with time.
Yes, I would say that's the key.
That's amazing. How could I do that? How could the other listeners do that? Like, what was the shift for you?
I mean, kind of now I'm saying things which may be politically incorrect, but
You can say whatever you want, Richard.
People want to grow infinitely old. People are very interested in longevity, but
Sure.
you can achieve that by kind of concentrating and immersing yourself more into the now.
Absolutely.
If you go into the now, you kind of reach a new type of infinity, and so you just go the other way. You just, try to cherish every millisecond.
Yeah.
And go with the events as they unfold, and then you're in an event time.
How do you know when to go to sleep at night? I'm just
it's so easy. Just tired, without thinking.
No, I appreciate that approach, and I think it makes sense. Sometimes we're so micro focused on doing things in a certain pattern or following when expected, as opposed and looking towards the future, have to be here then, have to do this by then. More, I think what you're saying is more focus on what you're actually doing.
Yes, and what's so interesting, so if I use again the analogy of Mandelbrot, the coastline.
Yep.
The coastline becomes longer the kind of more detailed measurements you make. And the same thing is with life. Sure. The more you immerse yourself into the now, the longer the coastline becomes, and the more you discover it. The kind of.
All right, I guess I can stop taking those fish oil pills and other longevity hacks. I like this approach much better. That's very good. That's very good. What else can you tell us about Lykke and what you're working on, and what else is on the horizon for you?
So just on the one hand, starting with optimal, predictive service. That's point one. Second is gradually, step by step, expanding the exchange. Third is offering very exciting products for institutional players in the custody space. Fourth is, trading platforms for banks which want to offer digital assets to their end users to have a straight-through processing platform, including liquidity. And last but not least, we have a very exciting product which for communities which want to offer city coins for their, within their communities. So it's a very nice, neat thing. So, we have a full bunch of products.
Excellent. Have those city coin, has that platform taken off? Do you have adoption?
It's being implemented by one of the most conservative towns in Switzerland, or half conservative towns, obviously.
Yeah.
Because
and what are they using it? I imagine to pay for utilities, to reward for contributions to the community. How does it work?
It's a voucher system for local shops. And it's very interesting because it helps them to revitalize and, support local commerce. And, it has so much potential. And it's really interesting. That's
amazing. And it's such an interesting concept. And people have approached me about that, something similar. The consensus that they always came to was that they didn't have a large enough population to make it to build an ecosystem around it. But it sounds like that's not necessarily true.
That's not true because the guy who issues the city coin, he gets a balance sheet. He has vouchers and the benefits are so big, which is hidden to the end user. I mean, normally you have price discounts, but then you have to discount the price, but you can give away the voucher at a lower price. So it gives you more flexibility to kind of tune the ecosystem, create the right incentives.
And ultimately, it's a closed ecosystem.
Yes.
Right. So I think what you're saying here is every token system does not have to be a Ponzi scheme.
Of course not. And I mean, again, it takes the players who are, are dedicated to build the right thing.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think it's about community as much as anything else, right? It's a way to sort of to bond a community, to solidify a community. Interesting tool. I like that. Well, it's been really cool talking to you, Richard. First time we've gotten to do this. I'm sure we'll follow up and do it again. How do people find you? What's the best way to look you up?
I mean, just over email or kind of richard.olsen@lykke.com or LinkedIn, or Telegram, the different channels. Always eager to get responses, feedback, and collaborations going.
Awesome. Lykke.com, LYKKE.com.
Yes. Right. And great to be in touch.
Yeah, same here. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day, Richard. Thanks.
Thanks. All the best. Enjoy it. Goodbye. Thanks.
Goodbye. Okay, I can turn off this recording.